Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Welcome to Tropicalfete platform. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We are happy to have you tonight. We are very happy to have you tonight. For those who are not familiar with us, we are Tropicalfete. Let me explain. Let me explain. We are a non-profit corporation and a multicultural art organization. So what we do, we are everything in art, everything in art. We dance, we sing, we do visual art, we do music, still pen, everything you need about art, we have it here in Tropicalfete. And tonight we have the pleasure to present to you a very talented young woman. Let me tell you something. This month it's about something very special about Caribbean American Heritage Month. Yeah, this is the Caribbean American Heritage Month, and Tropicalfete have a program, a full month program for you to present you different author, different writers, people who wrote books about their life, very interesting part in their life, art about the talented, the talent they have. So talented people are with us for this morning Tropicalfete. And tonight, it's a great honor for me to present you one of these people. It's Nadege. It's about Nadege Fleurimond. She's you can see that you can see that like the at the beginning. It's about cooking and good food, people, good food. And Caribbean people, we know about good food. We know that. We know about that. And especially she's Haitian. She's Haitian American. I can tell you that. And I'm proud and very proud of that. She can cook. I know how to cook, but she wrote a beautiful book. And tonight we are here to present you all about this book. Let me tell you something. I read that book and I was like speechless. Speechless. This is a beautiful book, very, very beautiful book. art of this book is something I've never seen before. When it comes to my country, someone writes something with it's a fancy book, very fancy book, and beautiful pictures. Everything is beautiful. Nadesh, welcome tonight. Welcome to our platform of Tropicalfete. How are you?
Thank you so much, Gaylleen. Thank you for having me. Alton, I know, is behind the scenes working hard. Thank you for putting together this platform that empowers Caribbean culture, Caribbean writers. Thank you for the wonderful words that you used to describe me. For a second, I was like, who's she talking about? Kiasa, Kiasa.
Oh, même, c'est où même.
Oh, so thank you. I appreciate the words. I appreciate your appreciation for the book because it was during a very tough time for us all. But out of that time, I try to take as much beauty out of it as possible and as many lessons out of it that I could share with the audience. So thank you so much again for having me tonight.
No, I can tell you this is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful work, beautiful pictures. Every pictures I want to eat them, you know. I just wanted to eat every single recipe. I say, okay, this is so beautiful. I have to try it. Everything is beautiful. Everything is beautiful. People, share the life, please. Share the life. You're gonna learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about this book and about her journey. It's a beautiful book, beautiful stories. Share the life, please. Share the life, and people, Haitian people, share life, la, share life, la, because
Share life lot.
share life la, nou la kay nou genyen la kay nou pa ka kite tan pase, nou kompren, fò lot moun tande sa, paske sa pa fasil pou jwen un moun la kay nou, avec gan pile talent, oui, mais yon moun pran soin pou fò bagay kon sa, m'pap di pa genyen non, mais li difficile pour trouver. Nadege, tell us about yourself. Who is Nadege Fleurimond? Who is?
I don't know. Well,
Who are you?
thank you again for having me. I definitely am Haitian. Anyone who knows me knows that much, right? I start with that because it has led me in everything that I've done. I was born in Haiti, left Haiti when I was 7 years old, and I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up in little Caribbean, as you would say, because I grew up in East Flatbush areas of Brooklyn, where it was really Caribbeanville. And I didn't get away from that until I went away to college. I went away to college in 1999, and it wasn't far. All I did was go to the Upper West Side to attend Columbia University. But when you grow up in Brooklyn, you realize that Upper West Side is a completely different universe compared to the world that you know in Flatbush or East Flatbush. So it was while on that campus that I really grew an appreciation for Haiti, Haitian culture, because I realized while on that campus with all the Moon Blancs or the all the other countries and nationalities that didn't know much about Haiti, that didn't know much beyond what the 6 o'clock news was saying about Haiti, how important Haitian identity was to who I was and who I had become and was becoming. And I wanted to share that. I wanted to share the Haiti that I knew, the Haiti that I understood with others who either never heard of it, who didn't know, or had a misunderstanding of it. So I set on out on the journey, not purposefully. It was just really trying to impact that little community I was in to be like, hey, I know you've heard that Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, but here's what else we have, right? I would cook on campus and share it. And then I realized through that cooking, I was able to also share other stories. I was able to share the music. I was just reminded, I just did a beautiful show with singer Emily Michelle this past weekend.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then I realized, oh my God, the first time I met this woman was 2002 when I brought her on campus because I wanted people to experience Haitian culture. I wanted my other Black friends, my Asian friends, my other Caribbean friends to know that this is what we had. I got a degree in political science. I thought I was going to go to law school for years. Came back to Brooklyn after graduation in 2003, worked for an elected official by the name of Yvette Clark. So we were
Mm.
speaking a little bit of politics prior to the show. I'm very well versed in Brooklyn politics, even though I try to hide from it. But I'm always in the background paying attention because, I'm an analyzer by nature. But just being in the Brooklyn political circle just really made me see the importance of culture and heritage and how that shapes everything around us. And I continued on that promotion of Haiti,
Mhm.
utilizing food. I love food. I grew up with a single Haitian dad, Gayrleen. So it's lucky that I still have my sanity, right? uh, but from him, I have to say, I don't think my Haitian pride came from him because I think when you deal with Haitians from that generation, many of them really just wanted to run away from being
Mhm.
Haitian and
Mhm.
running away, not even being Haitian, running away from Haiti and what they knew of it, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of my love for Haiti really came from my own reading and loving to go deeper, and the amazing educators that I always had that always pushed me to to um to really like dig deeper beyond what we were being taught in school. So I learned a lot about Haitian history
Mhm.
through the Black Jacobins and other books, and coming back to Brooklyn and being in the political circle, seeing so many phenomenal Haitians
Mhm.
people. I decided, yeah, I'm gonna use this food thing that I love, that I learned from my dad, and I'm gonna use it to kind of like serve as a tool to kind of like have that conversation around Haiti. Somebody asked, how do you fuse Haitian
How do
art
you?
with food?
Yes. You,
Uh, my my presentations are very colorful. I see art in music in your recipes because I think culture is intertwined, right?
mhm.
My friend said always jokes because I'm always like, you're such a wonderful artist, and she's like, you're an artist too. I'm like, I'm not an artist. She's like, yes you are, you're a culinary artist.
You
And
are.
but I think when we're talking about culture, it's hard to separate it, right? Because I just launched an apron line, and as I do my recipes, to me Haitian art and the pieces, the pilon, for example, I love the pilon. I think it's such a powerful piece as it relates to Haitian cooking. So I am going to take a beautiful picture with the pilon, the pesto and mortar, because I feel like it's such a representative piece. I am going to take the Cabela dress as inspiration for my apron, which is a kitchen piece, but I am going to connect that with the peasant dress because, again, our country and the foundation of Haiti is rooted right in that countryside
Mhm.
peasant lifestyle. So when I cook, even in my cooking, I promote the traditional dishes. I promote the maï moulin. When I first started catering in 2002, 2003, I think Haitian people say maï moulin pa mouté table, which is like cornmeal,
Yo toujours dit
vulgar
ça.
wheat, right? Those things like those peasant dishes or those countryside dishes, you don't bring them to an elegant gathering because they're not presentable enough for the tabletop. And I disagreed with that. And that was one of the things that I said on early on when I first started catering. There were very few Haitian chefs and caterers that were really pushing Haitian cooking. There
Mhm.
were Haitian chefs, but they were more mainstream. So I made it my mission, having started catering mainly in corporate. I was like, well, whenever I sneaked in some Haitian dishes for BET, for Dr. Oz, or whatever other jobs that I did, I noticed people liked it. And I was like, well, it, other cultures will appreciate our cuisine if we just present it to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I started was like, well, the dishes I want to introduce are those traditional dishes. It is the maïmoulin, the cornmeal, the bulgur wheat, the chaka, because these dishes, even us among Haitians, I didn't feel that we respected them enough. And I think when we're talking about culture, and especially as diaspora Haitians, right, who've migrated, if we don't have respect for those dishes,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't continue to carry them, who will?
That's true. That's the you are right. Definitely, you are right. Okay, now there's I can see in the book. I can see the pandemic. The pandemic had been a big factor on your decision to write a book. Can you tell us about this journey?
Yes. No, I think, I always tell people that I'm an entrepreneur through and through. And I think the pandemic reinforced it for me. I always say I'm an accidental entrepreneur, but at the same time, it was the only path for me because it kind of is in my blood. Um, I've been a full-time entrepreneur since 2004. So meaning I've always earned my own living, created my own space, first with my catering company, later with my consulting company, event production, things that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But catering was always the anchor. Food and my food business was always the anchor of everything I did. So when the pandemic hit March of 2020, quietly at first I panicked. I panicked because it was kind of like, wow, my whole world, my whole business, my whole income for the most part. I also do real estate, but at the time it wasn't even as big of an aspect of
Yeah.
the business. Food was my business. It was what I did. It was what people knew me for, and it was what paid everything. So I panicked because I was like, with events being shut down, clients panicking, wondering what's gonna happen with their weddings. I panicked.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, really, what am I going to do? And in that moment, what really calmed me, what really soothed my soul, soothed my mind, soothed my heart was food. I went into my kitchen, not in a business way. And that was the first time for a long time that had happened, because for a long time, Kate, food had become just a business for me. But during that initial stage of the pandemic, that was the first time I stepped into the kitchen, just really as a way to kind of like release. And I really
Mm-hmm.
started just cooking for my own enjoyment, cooking for as a way to connect. And then I was like, you know what? Let me turn on my camera. I turned on my camera, went on Facebook, went on Instagram, because I needed the distraction away from this craziness that we were living in,
Mm-hmm.
only to find that everyone needed the distraction. And people were glued to the shows, they were glued to the conversations I was having, to the dishes I was preparing. And then through that experience, day after day, as I would cook, I started noticing, I was like, wow, the anchor of how I cook is still very much rooted in Haiti, even when it is influenced by my love of food in general, because I travel a lot. I just got back from the Bahamas, so I'm already thinking of a nice conch fritter recipe. I was meshing all these dishes and flavors, but Haiti was always part of the story. As
Mm-hmm.
guests were watching, they started asking me. I didn't set out to write a book, but people watching me were like, "Oh my God, these recipes are phenomenal. You should write a book." And I always say that too. I'm always guided by my audience a lot. They have a lot of influence on me. They call me the influencer, but they really have a lot of influence on me because they tell me a lot of what they want. and
Mm-hmm.
how they see me. Because sometimes I don't even see myself in the way that my audience or my friends or people who love and support me sees me. But then they will see this great thing, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a great idea. So they saw a book from those lives and recipes um, that I was making, um, to on those lives, and I was like, you know what, a book would be great. And this is the first time I decided to write a fusion book. So in terms of do I add my touch to recipes, for the most part, that is how I like to cook. My second book, which is called Haiti Uncovered, it's my most powerful book ever. It
Mm-hmm.
is, if you love this book, give me a second, I'll show it to you. um my
Yeah, people.
My second
Okay.
book is a 300. This is how thick it is. Is a three
Oh.
is a 304-page book where I traveled throughout Haiti to write it. And it's very traditional. It's about the traditional cuisine, the stories, um, and the history of Haitian food.
Mm-hmm.
And I traveled for a year to write that book. And I wanted this one, Taste of Solitude, was more about my personal journey in terms of those initial months of the pandemic, but also the recipes were more for my own comfort. I love comfort cuisine, I love traditional cuisine, but I love comfort foods from all over the world. So I used the opportunity as kind of like an extension of this book. I would use things like, something like things that I love, like a macaroni, like lamb véritable, which is breadfruit, is a dish that we love. I love. A lot of people don't love it because again, it's considered like countryside food.
I
But
love
I
it too.
use
I
it.
love it
You
too.
love it too, Seven
Yeah.
Jamie.
And fry, and when you fry that, this is
It's better than fried plantains, right?
yeah,
So,
better.
but the way we traditionally will make it is normally like as a, fried or boiled. So in Taste of Solitude, I use that lamb veritable. Instead of making a regular potato salad, I used it to make a potato salad. Instead of using like pomme de terre gratinée or macaroni au gratin, I use the breadfruit to
Mm-hmm.
make a au gratin.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really that book where I mesh flavors. Like I have an escovitch snapper, but with a timalis relish. You get. So, which timalis is just like a traditional Haitian sauce. So it is like my way of kind of like showing people my personal way of how I tend to cook. Even for my catering company, one of the reasons we've grown successful over the years is because I do mix the traditional with the modern and other takes on things. Because I think our jobs as chefs, as general rule, I think ethnic chefs. Like I talk to a lot of chefs from the continent, Africa, chefs from other countries in the Caribbean. And I think when you're an ethnic chef, your job is twofold. Your job is to share the traditional way of doing things to the audience that has perhaps never heard of it. So if they've
Mm-hmm.
never heard of Jamaican food, if they've never heard of Haitian food, when you step into that room of those people who haven't heard of us, I think it's great to share something nice and traditional so they can really get a scope or taste, for lack of a better word, of what that traditional flavor look like. But I also think as chefs, we have a second job, which is to broaden and expand the palette of our home base. Because as a Haitian person, one of the things I noticed, our people get very regimented and specific in terms of how certain things are supposed to be cooked, how they're supposed to look, and different things like that. And I said, no, food is about broadening your palate, expanding your palate. So it is our jobs now as these ethnic chefs who understand ingredients to understand like the John doesn't always have to be made with rice. You can make it with spaghetti. You can make sauces with it. You can use it in a risotto. You can use it in these other ways. I know Haitians are big on pounding their herbs and spices from scratch. Did you have to learn about new plants, seasonings, etc.? Haitians need a piece in their life. The pounding of the herbs and spices is really the foundation of Haitian cuisine. That's why we have the pesto and mortar. Here, we are more modern. We use the food processor or the blender. But the Haitian épice is really the foundation of Haitian cuisine. Depending on what household you're from, welcome back, Gaylleen. Depending on what household you're from, the épice can vary. For me, my Haitian épice is scallions, which green onions, garlic, green sweet, green peppers, red peppers, some thyme, parsley, and then a little onion, and then some oil as my base. But depending on where you go, some people will add scotch bonnet. I don't add scotch bonnet because I don't want everything to taste like pepper. I'm like, I'll add my scotch bonnet depending on what I'm making. Some people will add their salt additive. I don't add my salt additives because, again, if you're a cook, you know that if you're making something like a lambi conch,
Mm-hmm.
you don't cook your conch with salt or any kind of salt base, or it's going to be hard. So when I make my épice or that pounded herbs that you mentioned, Alton, I want my épice to be as flavorful but as clean tasting as possible. And then depending on what I'm using it for, because it is our marinade to make most of our savory dishes, whether it's our rice, season our meat, season our fish, then I will add different things. I will add lime to it if I'm seasoning using it for meat. But if I'm using it for rice, my base usually don't have lime. So it varies from household to household. In terms of learning, as I traveled throughout Haiti, I learned different things and different ways that people use things. For example, I never heard of a legume papaya before. Papaya to me was something you made juice.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you could you know the green before it ripe that you could actually make legume with it, almost like a militon, which is like chayote. So these are the things that I set out to explore, because even though I was in food, when you are of a specific culture, what we also forget is we don't know the whole country. We may be from the culture, and Haitians will fight you, Gaylene. They will fight you like something is only made one way. And I'm like, but it varies from region to region, but it also varies from household to household. Maybe everywhere may make it this way, but what if your aunt or mother had an allergy, so they never added that part to it, or they never did it that way? So I also want us to start be a little bit more tolerant in terms of how other people cook.
Okay, Nadesh, other part, I know we don't follow recipe.
Most of the world doesn't. Recipe is a very Western concept, right? So tika this, a little that, a little bit of this. Gasho timososa.
It is not a good habit.
It's, I mean, again, I do think, like I said, food, as much as recipes are good, recipes are good for foundation. I do feel like cooking is something that comes from within you,
Mm-hmm.
and we all, it's it's going to vary based on who is cooking the food. So, and we all have different palates and different taste buds, different way we receive ingredients. So, so I think recipes should only serve as a guide
Mm-hmm.
for the person who may not know how to do something. Like as a chef, I check out other recipes, but it is only so I can change it around to my taste. Because
Okay.
at the end of the day, it's rare that I'm going to find a recipe and it's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want. It doesn't happen too often. So I think we give ourselves too much trouble and too much anxiety about recipes when we should just really use them. It's like, oh, me formula, mais Jean lié, just to give us the idea. And once we get that structure, it said to use parsley. You hate parsley. Use basil. Use cilantro. Maybe you have a different palate. Like I hate cilantro. So whenever a recipe calls for cilantro, for the most part, I'm not using it. You know, if I'm making it for someone else, if and I know. So we don't need to be so rigid,
Mm-hmm.
but do use recipes as a way to guide you. So now you can really find out what you love and how you love it.
Okay. You said something in the book. I read a quote that said, "People who love to eat are always the best people." Why do you say?
Parce que t'es pour moun vicieux, ça veut dire qu'elle est content. Moun vicieux, boom, like we're happy people. Like the reason people's like, Nadege, you're always so happy. I'm like, because I love to eat, and I really do. Right before the show, me and my friend Cindy, we had a long day because we had like a lot of real estate stuff to discuss. I have 2 events to cater this weekend. I was planning out my day. We were making deals. We were doing different things. But afterward, the real day ended with us going next door to this amazing Italian restaurant, having a glass of wine, and bourref bouche nou, bourref figi nou. So, so food will
What?
always
What
lighten the
freedom I
mood.
do? What?
And then because when a person allows themselves the freedom and really, I think when people love to eat, there's a soul connection, right? That we have when we're really eating and allow ourselves the freedom to enjoy that meal, guilt free. So when somebody has that kind of self acceptance to
Mm-hmm.
know that they're greedy, uh, and also the acknowledgement to know that, okay, I love food, but we also do live in a world where I still need to have some kind of discipline around that because I love working out. I'm all about health and fitness as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reason I like that quote is because I feel like the quote really speaks more to self acceptance and self awareness. And I think when you
Mm-hmm.
possess those two things,
Yeah,
you are a good person, not just for yourself, but for everyone else around you.
you're right. You're right. You have another question here. You have another question from Tropicalfete.
Oh,
Uh,
as a caterer, how difficult, if any, is it to cater for a large body and keep it authentic? Oh no, I mean that's something you learn as you do in terms of how you scale. I think too, crowds will vary. Um, I mean, your question is two aspect. Authenticity is not really about the numbers. It's how you cook based on numbers itself is more about like you learning the proper technique of cooking for the masses. The second aspect of your question, which I think is part of your what you're asking, is I think as caterers we cook for various crowds.
mm-hmm.
And like when I'm cooking, I have to keep in mind that not everyone is gonna want the pickles to be spicy where their brains are flying off.
Yeah, yeah.
So there is the person from OCAP who likes their stuff really hot, who's gonna be like, pickles la pas piqué. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm
We are.
okay with that.
We are.
you know so and you have to be okay with that because you will never be able to hit a palate or every palate 100% of the time, but you do have to find that nice balance where you can give people flavor. They know that it is a pickles, like I'm gonna give you the bulk of what creates the recipe, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't take it too one direction knowing that the majority of people may not enjoy
Mm-hmm.
it. So you have to find that happy medium where you understand the majority of people, especially when you're catering, like yeah, there's different palates. So ou pa ka fe ba yo trop piqué, ou pa ka fe yo trop salé, can't be too salty, can't be too hot. but it has to be good and good flavor. Most palates will appreciate. In terms of me loving cooking, I
How
think
you think?
I started
Mhm.
writing in terms of writing my books. I think I started writing initially, I'll be very honest. It came from the place of like, well, you know what? I've been doing what I'm doing, and everyone says the next thing to establish yourself as an expert is to write a book, right? So that
Mhm.
was my initial drive for writing a book. Then I was like, I didn't like it. It didn't move me. It didn't. I don't. I'm a person who's very passionate because I could have been a doctor, I could have been a lawyer. I mean, I went to Brooklyn
Mhm.
Tech here, so I was supposed to be like very science, math oriented. That's my background. So I could have gone in any direction. But
Mhm.
I am very big on passion. I'm big on passion in what I do for a living. I'm big on passion in terms of my personal life. So for me, if it doesn't move me, I'm not gonna be able to really give it my attention. So when the initial thought of writing was about like me becoming an expert, I was like, oh, I need to write a cookbook. I wasn't being moved. Hence why my first book was Taste of Life, um, um, a culinary memoir, because I realized that aspect of storytelling I loved. I love food as much as I love food, but I love food for the stories that come with food. I love food because I get to share history. I love food because I can explore gender dynamics. I love
Mhm.
food because I can explore class issues. I love food because it keeps me connected to my homeland. I love food because I can see the connection between my moulin and the southern grits and the cuckoo. And I love food because I could see like, oh my god, our tom tom is just like a fufu. I love food because I could see like the paella and the arroz con pollo and all of these other dishes, and the jambalaya. They all are connected. I love food to understand that Italian cuisine that we revere so much is also structured in peasant cuisine that nobody valued at some point as well, until someone decided to give it some attention. So for me, food is those stories. And that's what I'm passionate about. Not just like, oh, I get to cook a dish and I get to sell it, or I get
Mhm.
to write a recipe and I get to share it. It's more like I get to share a piece of something deeper with people.
Okay. Let me ask you something. I never knew. I never knew there's a story behind soup jumeau. So in the book, I read that you
Yes, you
yeah,
did it. Oh,
you told the story about soup jumeau. Can you share this? Tell
yeah,
us a little bit
sure.
about soup jumeau.
Yeah, so I think for me, and as you said that, and I guess it's all of these things, because food is so much deeper than just the fact like we eat these things, right? So sumjumu uh is the dish. It's a squash. It's like a pumpkin, but it's squash, which is part of the pumpkin family. A pumpkin is part of the squash family. So it's the calabaza squash, and we make a soup out of it every January 1st. Haitians from all over the world, no matter where we are, we're trying to have a soup jumu. And I grew up wondering like, why was that so important? And I learned that the reason that we value that is our independence soup. It is the soup that we use to celebrate Haitian Independence Day, which is January 1st. But why the soup? Well, the soup is a soup that we were not allowed to drink during slavery days. So the way I understand the story, we were not able to drink subjumu during during slavery days, and then upon getting our independence, this soup became a symbol, which I think is a phenomenal symbol,
Yeah.
that it wasn't so much about the soup, but it was more so like, hey, this is about the equality of man. You can't tell another man, no matter the color of his skin, that he cannot have this. So this became a symbol of freedom. It became a symbol of equality. It became a symbol of what represents, like, you know what, liberation for Haiti, because all men are created equal, so we all can have this delicious soup and be equal in that we can all eat it. Now, I also learned recently, because we all make soup jumu different, of course, in our household. But if you are in 2021, most people are making soup jumu with like some kind of beef, some kind of pied beef, cow foot, or they're making it with like some kind of meat and then also pasta. Usually those are traditional things. But I also learned recently that the original soup jumu was completely vegetarian. They did not
Really?
add meat to it. Yeah, you see. So yeah, so through that, there's a wonderful historian by the name of Baina Bello. She shared that story as well. She shared it with us because she does study Haitian history. So it is important that we understand these little things, because it we're eating this dish, and January 1st we're na casse tête when we're soup joumou. Si nous pas boire soup joumou, like something's wrong, when we're like, we must have soup joumou no matter where we are. Like, I'll have college students start writing me like, how do I make soup? I have to walk them through the process, because they feel like they're letting their ancestors down if they don't have that soup joumou. But it is also important that we understand the significance and the value, and and so we can actually continue these traditions. Name one celebrity that you would work with, again, minus any hesitation. I think everybody I've worked with were phenomenal. I've worked with Dr. Oz, I've worked with Vivica Fox, I've worked with Wyclef Jean, I've worked with Jimmy Jean Louis. I've worked with a number of celebrities. And I think, everyone, Mona Scott was a regular client of mine, Mona Scott Young, very supportive. Of my work, my books, my catering, everything that I've done. And I appreciate everybody. I think the one thing, everybody who have known me the last 18, 19 years in the work that I've been doing, yes, they love the food, but I think they also see the aspect of me promoting the culture as well. It's just that food is the tool that I use. Food is the gift that I have. So I use it, but the bigger mission is and has always been to really get the conversation going about Haiti. I recently just had an article in Travel Noir magazine and about my book and my apron. And to me, those things are important, because it's not just having Travel Noir or Condé Nast or Epicurious writing about me or writing about my or Food and Wine wrote an article about my cremas once. So it's not just that. The simple reason that these things are important is because it is putting Haiti in just another light. Somebody who
Right,
either
right.
didn't know about it, but if or what they knew was always very specific, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They get to be like, oh, I can actually just enjoy a
Mm-hmm.
story about Haiti. And I think for a long time, even us, there's the trauma that exists among us as Haitians, that we don't think we can just talk about nous ge bel manger, we have great food, or we have great art, or we have great beaches, without it being this guilt of all these other things that may exist. And I think it is important, because when we say, oh, the Big Apple, beautiful buildings, we don't have all automatically say, well, they're killing people in East New York, or they're doing this in thing. So I think it is important that we share these stories about Haitian art, Haitian culture, Haitian laughter, Haitian just good things, and for the story to end there, and that's it. And that's just something you can walk away with and know the knowledge. And that's what I try to do with the food. Like, you can just walk away learning about this amazing poisson sell and be like, I want to go to Haiti and try that. I never knew that existed. I would like to learn more.
So parle de l'ambia.
Lambi is amazing. I love lambi. I think Haitians make amazing lambi. Uh, I've been to the South, Okai, where they make super great lambi, lambi bukane. The only problem with lambi in this country it's hard getting it fresh because lambi is best when it is right out of the water. If you go on my Instagram page, thank you so much, Ansava.
Thank you, Asam.
So if you go on my Instagram page, I was just in the Bahamas and they were showing you how they get the conch, lumbi's conch, how they get
Yeah,
it, how they
the con.
prepare it. And I thought Haitians love lambi, but the Bahamians, they really love lambi. Since this is a Caribbean show, shout out to my Bahamians. You guys do love your conch because they make it in every kind of way. Conch chowder, conch fritter, stewed
Mm-hmm.
conch, fried conch, conky conch, crack conch. Us, we like our lambi boucané, our lambi en sauce, and then look, I make a little marinade here and there, but they really love it. But it's so different on Haitian soil or in the Caribbean because it's just really fresh. And you can eat it like a ceviche, just make a salad out of it, or just grill it right on the grill because it's not frozen. But when you
Mm-hmm.
buy it here and it's frozen, you really are just really left with the option of like lambina sauce of stewing it and enjoying it in that way. But it's also known as an aphrodisiac, gentlemen.
Oh.
So, lambi is something that's known to basically help the libido.
Yep, yep, yep.
So, gentlemen, if you need a little
The-
support,
I think they already know that. They already know that. They already know about that.
the can definitely help you. My first book was probably about like 3 months. My longest book was this one. My second book,
Mm-hmm.
Haiti Uncovered, a culinary, Haiti Uncovered, a regional adventure into the art of Haitian cuisine. And the forward is by my favorite author, Edwidge Danticat. This book took me about a year because I really did have to travel to Haiti back and forth. My third book, Taste of Solitude, a culinary memoir. I wrote that in about another 3 months' time during the pandemic. But this one, which is currently out of print, uh, I'm working on the second edition to be released
Okay.
by November of this year. It's probably my life's greatest work because people really do appreciate it because it's really about sharing the traditional recipes because I wanted to create something for Haitian Americans, second and third and fourth generations for them to have like, visuals of Haiti
Mm-hmm.
and the foods that I love, but also get a sense of the history and how the food comes into play. So this is really like a book that I'm very proud of, and I hope that and I've learned from my audience and friends and fans that have really told me like, wow, this book has really impacted their lives because it could be something simple as them just appreciating their mother more because they're like,
Mm-hmm.
wow. Mwen wè for my mom te kon fè pou fè manje sa yo, now that I have to do it for myself. So there's a really a extra appreciation that people develop for the cuisine when they read the book because and then also understanding some of the history behind some of the thing. One of the things I love that I did in this book, it says much. You see how I have the English quotes? So in this
Mm-hmm.
book, the quotes, even though the book is in English, but all my proverbs are in Creole. And this one says, manger cuit, page met. So I like that quote in Haitian Creole because it translates to food that is cooked does
Doesn't.
not have an owner. And that really speaks to us as a community because that is
Mm-hmm.
how we are as a culture. Let nous faire manger la caille. Once we've cooked, it belongs to the community. It belongs to whoever needs to be fed. It is all about supporting and basically helping the next person that may need a dish. So I said, so we're not about like, oh, this food is mine. This food is once it's cooked, whoever's hungry, that's who it belongs to.
So, wap palak moun yo ki sere manjan baka ban yo.
Ah, Madeline Disa, but because that's the thing, right? This is where culture is very important because here when you grow up, you'll be in households where you see people put names on their food, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it just shows you cultural differences in upbringing and things like that. So when we don't believe in that in Haitian household, like my
Mm-hmm.
dad, papa mtaba musel kalo if I were to ever put my name on food in the refrigerator. I remember one time my younger brother, when I was growing up, my younger brother came to visit me, and we bought a plate of Chinese food, cut chicken wings with fried rice. And then my brother, I we bought one plate to share, and my brother opened it, Lizzie, and he took one piece and was like, "Ouvle un morceau." My dad was like, "What? You don't offer people food like
No,
that. You give them the
you give
plate."
the plate.
Yes,
Oh
they
yeah.
take whatever they want. So
Mm-hmm.
little things like that was how I grew up. And we're very big on Proverbs. This is another one. So this is this beautiful man and daughter that I saw going to church. And then I decided the quote that I used for this one, the proverb was Jumu pardonne calbas.
Calbas.
So could you translate that for them, Gaylleen?
Je me pardonne. How you tell me what you did with that? How you can use that?
So basically, it's basically like saying one fruit or one. It's like an apple tree cannot make oranges.
Okay, if
So
I
if you
think
know
okay, if
jumu,
you
so
have
jumu is like a
if you have
pumpkin.
strawberry, you can have cherries.
It can't make cherries. So it's a
Yeah.
way of basically saying the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Would be
Mm-hmm.
a closer translation, but basically you can't get something out of something that doesn't exist,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if for you to get something, there has to have been rooted in it. So it's like a pumpkin cannot make something else that's not its roots.
Mm-hmm.
What has the response been from the Haitian diplomatic corps? Been
Been
directly and indirectly, you've emerged as an ambassador. I don't really. I'll be very honest. As it relates to Haitian diplomats or things like that, Haiti is a little bit the Haitian community. I think as it relates to, I don't know. You know what? I'm not even going to comment on that. The work that I do is for myself to educate
mm-hmm.
myself, is to educate my community. It's what I see is needed. I don't do
Mm-hmm.
it for any kind of recognition from any particular group. I've been blessed to work with a lot of different people in what I've done. And I think for the people that it resonates with because I am very good and very bad at this. When I'm working, I have blinders on because
Mm-hmm.
I don't particularly do it for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's why I'm very much an artist because I do it because I'm like, wow, this is what I'm moved to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I feel is needed. And then I start answering to that. If it resonates, if somebody picks it up, somebody likes it, okay, but I'm not really focused on diplomatic corps or really like the powers that be to
Mm-hmm.
respond to it. I consider myself a culture ambassador because people consider me to be. I've done things around culinary diplomacy with different institutions, with the American Embassy, and different people that have acknowledged the work that I've done in Guadeloupe. I've been invited to various festivals in France because they see the work that I do through Haitian cuisine. Uh, and that's it. You see, this is why I was about to cook, but I knew I couldn't because now that the heat has started, I'm
Okay.
sweating like crazy.
We almost done. Is there anyone in your family who's a chef?
No,
Mm-hmm.
no, not at all. My dad is a phenomenal cook, and he's the one I learned to cook from. But Gaylene, you're Haitian. Like as I mentioned, Haitian households, you're supposed to be either a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer.
Yep.
No, it's very rare that a Haitian household is gonna want you to be a chef. Like
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time, my dad called me a machin manger.
Yep.
because it was kind of like, his whole thought pattern was, I sent you to an Ivy League university. You're supposed to be phenomenal by being a doctor, by being a lawyer, by being an engineer. Why are you cooking for a living? So for a lot of our people in our community, and I realize it's not just Haitians, my Chinese friends go through the same thing. A lot of my friends from Bangladesh, a lot of immigrant communities and other Caribbeans and African communities, it's pretty much like your immigrant parents, they come here, so
Mm-hmm.
their idea of success is very specific. So it took me a long time to understand that and even forgive myself and my father for not understanding this path that I wanted to take, because for me it was really like, this is what I want to do, this is what I feel I need to do. But I didn't feel like it was respected by my family, and it wasn't because they don't come from this place. They don't come from the US where chefs are respected. Chefs make a whole lot more money than some doctors, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know that. So it was just kind of like, why are you wasting your life? So it wasn't something that I saw around me. It was just something that I was just moved to do. In terms of Haitian street food, yes, there's tons of street food. Fritai, which is like Haitian fried street food. A wonderful chef by the name of Chef Natasha Gomez. Go follow her. She just released a book called Back Fritai. Um,
Yeah.
all about Haitian street food. Yes. So definitely Haitian street food culture is amazing in Haiti. It's very vibrant. I remember traveling as a kid on the big bus, not the top, the bigger one. And then as you stopped in each town or each major city, like you have the people selling you dusmacos, selling you
Yeah.
papita, which is plantain chips, selling you tablet, which is these like
Dus
um
cocoyer.
cocoyer,
Mm-hmm.
cocoyer, fudge, and various, brittles of cashew and peanuts, and then just fried pork and fried plantains. So street food was very much, because the country is always on the move. So as much as people cook at home, for the people that are like navigating between cities, it was always a big thing, those street foods.
Before the last question, you talk a lot about your father in the book. It seems like you have a great, 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 great connection. Is that is that a fair assessment?
I mean, it is. I did not realize how influential my dad was until I shared stories on social media, because for me it was natural to say my dad, my dad, my dad, because I left
Mm-hmm.
Haiti at 7. My mom is still in Haiti. So that was very much, I didn't really grow up with my mom. So I say my dad, and it's weird because it is a strong connection. And for the longest time, we were always at odds because, again, like I said, he didn't approve of my path. So
Mm-hmm.
that created a rift. It's now in my older years, and I'm like, again, part of it is me now being more confident in what I'm
Okay.
doing and not necessarily needing his approval. And in finally reaching that space, I'm like, oh my God, I can't have a relationship with my dad because what he said doesn't bother me anymore. What he said used to bother me because I wasn't fully secure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a great connection because my dad is super smart, super analytical. I get a lot of the way I process things from him. So I end up having to reference him because I realize a lot of the ways he viewed the world have impacted how I view the world. So he does serve as influence in that way. So even though we didn't speak for years, that influence from my childhood until I went to college
Mm-hmm.
really lasted till this very day, because I also realized, as much as a parent there may have been some rift between us, as a human being he has such a way of thinking that I think that has just made me even better, and I appreciate that a lot.
Last question.
Tu te dit ça déjà, oui?
That's the last one. That's the last.
It's okay. It's okay. I love your questions, Kelly.
What advice you can give young people like me,
Young people like us. Young people like us. Young people like us, Gayrleen.
who wants to become a chef?
Advice is the same advice I would give if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a basketball player, if you want to be any kind of entrepreneur, is whatever it is you want to do is be dedicated to it, right? Be
Mm-hmm.
committed to understand that it takes work. Talent is not enough.
Mm.
I didn't see that comment that just came up, uh, but feel
What
free
other
to post it
people
again.
to do in
Um,
Haiti?
oh,
Eating from
yes.
the street vendors.
Hell yes, we all do. We all do. I miss it. I'm trying to sneak out to Haiti. I don't tell nobody because it's been
No,
too
no,
long.
no.
It's been too long. It's been too long. But yeah, so I think oftentimes both young people and adults get sidetracked or get it a little bit misconstrued, thinking that their talent is sufficient to get them there. And while that's a good part, but that is why you will often see not so talented people way ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've all experienced that. We'll be like, oh my God, this person is not even that great. I'm a better thing. Like, I'm sure there's a million people who watches me, Gayrleen, who's like, Miss Ami, I know our people, right? Or Miss Ami,
When no. No.
we know, I can cook better than her. I can dance better than this person. I can sing better than this person. I do this better than that person.
Yep.
But yet that person is ahead of you. So instead of that mentality, I think it is important that young people and even adults understand success is not just about the raw talent
Mm-hmm.
and the ability, but it is the work you put behind it. And then not just the work, let's be honest, there are hard workers that are not succeeding. So it's not a very 1 + 1 + 1 kind of formula, but it is a number of things. The work you put behind it and the creativity too. I always tell people you have to be innovative
Mm-hmm.
because there are a million chefs. There are going to be a million hosts. There are going to be a million dancers. There are going to be a million other people that do exactly what you do.
That's
The
true.
thing is, how are you doing yours in an innovative way that is going to touch? And that's the
Mm-hmm.
other key part. Whatever it is you do, it because that's why it even doesn't matter. There's a million other people doing whatever it is you do. Don't let that scare you, young person listening.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let that scare you because there is a special way that you do what you do that only you can do.
Only you.
So it is important that you tap into that and put the work behind that and bring it out and share it with the rest of us because we're here for it.
Definitely, definitely. Wow, now I have a lot of questions. I think we talk later.
No, this was great. The time went by so fast. I didn't realize it's been an hour.
Yeah, and more than an hour. I think this is more than an hour now. But yeah, more than an
Yes, I
hour.
didn't even
That
notice.
is.
That means that's what means it was a great conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the beautiful stories you wrote. This book is special, people. Very special book. I can say um, saveur de la solitude. I speak French to
Oh,
people.
okay. You have to teach me some French.
I speak French. Saveur de la solitude. You can find that book in Amazon. Yeah,
Yes.
in
And feel
Amazon.com.
free to visit my website,
And
nadegefleurimond.com.
yeah,
And then you'll find all my products. And then keep up with me on social media as well. Everywhere I am Nadege Fleurimond. And just really let's stay in touch. I try to share as much positivity. I share different aspects of my journey as much as possible. So definitely let's visit, let's share, because I'm very transparent as much as I can. to the extent that I think it's something that may help, I will share it. So yeah, let's continue this journey together.
You see people that's beautiful, beautiful women. I don't know.
Gayrleen, you like the book. You like the book.
Yeah, I
Ah,
can
you
tell
like
you
the
that.
book.
You can
Okay.
see that. You can see that. I everything in the book. I love it. Congratulations again, Nadege.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much.
much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you to you. Thank you to Tropical Fete. Thank you to Alton. Please continue this beautiful platform and continue sharing these beautiful stories of different authors. And thank you for feeling me worthy and inviting me to share my story. Thank you. And you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, and you too. And you people, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being there with us more than an hour. Thank you. Visit us in tropicalfete.com. You can visit us also in social media, in Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. We are everywhere. If you need a school, art, for art school for your kids, for you, for your cousin, sister, mother, we are here too. Tropical Fit is here. Caribbean culture, everything you need about Caribbean, you will find it in Tropical Fit. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Stay safe and stay blessed. See you next time.
Bye.